Hey, welcome back to the channel. We're getting into more Halloween goodness here and our 31 days of horror on the channel. When I say 31 days, it's simply going to be 31 videos because my ass has been lazy and I didn't get started on time. So we're far behind. We're only 4 in. This is episode 4 here, and it's essentially the podcast Elm Hotline sharing some episodes from that audio podcast onto the channel here just to see if people are interested in it. Horror buffs tend to be 100% down the line horror, and I thought to myself, dedicated podcast for horror. Somebody might be interested. So we're getting into A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Master, in this episode. So check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome along to a brand new episode of Hellmouth Hotline. Almost got the name wrong in this episode as well. I have got so many podcasts on the go at the minute. We're getting into the Nightmare on Elm Street series again. Absolutely loving it. It's been a long time since I actually sat down and watched these movies back to back, and I'm really enjoying them this time, I have to say. So we're going to get into this one, which is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Alright, so this movie was released in 1998, and of course, obviously it's the 4th installment in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It was directed by Rennie Harlan and stars Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Celebrity status in a big bad way by the time they got to this film. Also stars Lisa Wilcox, Danny Hassel, and following the death of Nancy Thompson, Krueger reappears in the dreams of Kristen Parker, Joey Crusoe, and Roland Kincaid, the surviving kids from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, and yes, fairly quickly takes those guys out at the beginning of the movie. There's no beating about the bush in this movie. Year after the events of the previous film, all the kids, they've been released from the Weston Hills hospital. They're back to their lives, normal teenagers with their families. Kristen believes Freddy Krueger will come back, and when she dreams that she is in Freddy's old boiler room, she uses her powers once again, summons Joey and Kincaid into the dreams. Kincaid and Joey, they're not happy. She's reverted back to her old ways. They're trying to get on with their lives as normal teenagers once again. They don't want to go back to the hospital. To keep her calm, they take her to the boiler, show her, this is in the dream, of course, take her to the boiler, and they show her that it's ice cold. Like, Freddy's gone, he's not coming back, he was buried in the last movie, and consecrated grave and everything, holy water, the whole works. There's no way he can come back. Kristen also managed to summon Kincaid's dog into the dream. The dog jumps out of the boiler, bites Kristen, and they all wake up in the rooms at the same time, and she has the bite mark on her arm from inside the dream. And Kincaid says, you brought my dog into the dream. He's not going to be happy about it exactly the same way I'm not happy about it. They're not believing her. They think Freddy's gone forever. The next day, Kristen meets up with her boyfriend. He's a martial arts enthusiast, Rick Johnson, played by Andreas Jones, I want to say. A-N-D-R-A-S, Andreas. Let's just go with that. Andreas Jones. And their friends. Rick's shy and quiet sister Alice, Lisa Wilcox, who will be the main character in this movie. Sheila, an asthmatic genius, and Debbie, a tough girl who doesn't like bugs, and that plays into her death scene later in the movie, which is incredibly well done. Kincaid and Joey, of course, they confront Kristen at school about the dream. They tell her to let it go, that their days of fighting and dreams are over, and if she keeps going at it, she might accidentally bring Kruger back herself. That night, Kristen stays awake to keep herself from dreaming. But Kincaid, in his own room, in his own house, he falls asleep, and he awakens in the junkyard, actually, in the boot of one of the cars, where we found the remains of Freddy's skeleton in the last movie. Freddy has been accidentally resurrected. Kincaid puts up a good fight against Freddy. Of course, his dream power was the hard man, But Freddy gets the best, overpowers him. Kincaid screams for Kristen, but Freddy reaches him, kills him. For the first time, really killing people properly with the glove in the movies. The glove gets a... it's not that he hasn't used the glove before, but just thinking back over the horror movies, the first death in the first movie was the girl was killed in her dreams, but we seen it in the real world, so we seen the slash coming down the chest and the stomach, just opening up, but you didn't actually see the glove going into her. And I could be completely wrong about that, just blasting out words right here and right now. He has used the glove, I'm pretty sure, up to this point, before this point. Joey in his room, he's sitting watching MTV, listening to music in his room, and he begins to fall asleep. But as he is about to fall asleep, there's this model on one of his posters, and he's on a waterbed. And of course, we're kind of used to the dream world blending with reality in these movies, but it's not as well hidden in these movies. It's the first couple of movies was very good at that little blend between them falling asleep and waking up, but you're kind of used to that by the time you get to this movie, so you're kind of like a step ahead whenever this starts to happen now. The bed that he's on, the water bed, starts to move, and he pulls the covers back, and the swimsuit model that was on his poster is naked, swimming in the water inside the bed. Next thing, Freddy jumps out of the water bed and pulls Joey in to drown him. Joey screams again, just the same way Kincaid did for Kristen to help him, but Freddy stabs, kills him. This is all very swiftly at the beginning of the movie. The kids that survived the previous movie don't really last that long in this movie, bar Kristen. She lasts the longest out of them. School the next day, Kristen panics when she notices that Joey and Kincaid are missing, and she accidentally knocks herself out. And as Rick, her boyfriend's trying to calm her down, she pulls away from him, falls back onto the wall, knocks herself out. She wakes up in the medical bay of the school, and Kristen feels guilty about staying awake when she learns that Kincaid and Joey were found dead. There's a little sequence there while she's unconscious where the nurse, and it's Freddy in a dress with lipstick, makeup on, the whole works, pretending to be the nurse, and then reveals it's him. And as he goes to get her, she wakes up in the real bed in the real medical room in the school. So at this point, Kristen, she's blaming herself in a major way about Kincaid and Joey. She later tells Rick and Alice's crush Dan Jordan, played by Dan Hassel, about Freddy, and she vows to avenge Kincaid and Joey. Kristen realises that her mother has put sleeping pills in her dinner, and her mother is still not believing her about the whole Freddy thing, and you need to get some sleep, so she actually drugs her own daughter during dinner with sleeping pills. She falls asleep, but as she tries to run out of the dining room, She starts to dream, and Freddy overcomes her attempts to repel him and forces her back into his home. Like, it's just, my notes aren't that clear right here because I was jotting down a whole load of stuff as I was watching the movie. Like, I really need to take a little bit more time and put these down a little bit better. My England isn't so good. Yes, in the dream, Freddy's after her again. The nightmare world, I have to say, and Dream Warriors and this one, Dream Master, is fantastic. The movie looks stunning. For what sort of budget did we have in this here? Have I even got the figures? Dream Master, released 88. It grossed 49.4 million at the domestic box office on a budget of 6.2 million. Now, every movie that came out after Nightmare on Elm Street almost had an extra 2 million each time, and you can really see it in the effects in the last two movies, and the eventual defeat of Freddy in this movie is fairly disturbing, to say the very least. So well done. In the dream, Freddy's after, and turns out Kristen, she's the last of the Elm Street children that are still alive, the ones that were born to the people that originally killed Freddy. And Freddy goads Kristen, and who, he wants to use her to summon more of her friends into the dreams. She's the last victim that he has, and once she's gone, there's no more kids really for him to go after, so he needs a connection to a new bunch of kids, and he manages to do that through Kristen. She tries not to do it, but she calls Alice under her dream, and Freddy knows, okay, this is a fresh batch of kids that I've got right now, there's no more need for Kristen. The boiler in his boiler room, the fire comes up on it, and he grabs hold of Kristen and throws her into the boiler. But before she dies, Kristen gives Alice her dream power. So there's a blast of energy comes from Alice as she's dying. Kristen as she's dying, and it goes into Alice. It's the power that she had to pull other people in their dreams. Alice wakes up with a sense that something's wrong. She gets hold of Rick. They go to Kristen's house. When they get there, they see that Kristen's bedroom is on fire, and they get up in there, they take a look in, and she's on the bed. The whole bed's in flames. So this movie does a great job of, more so than some of the rest of the movies, of blending, however the kids dive in the dream, you get to see the real world consequence to the dream death in the real world. Of course, that's the whole point. If you die in the dream, you die in the real world. So she gets thrown into the boiler in the dream, and in the real world, the bedroom had caught fire, and you see her arm hanging off the side of the bed. It's fairly, it's graphically done, but not overboard. Like, you don't see anything other than the hand. You don't see the main part of her body or her face or anything like that there. Like, it's just, back in '88, everything was, for the most part, practical. It just gave a little bit more realism to those effects. And, it's brutal enough for its time. Later, Alice falls asleep during class, and she inadvertently brings her friend Sheila into the dream. Freddy pops up, of course, again, taking the place of the teacher at the front of the classroom. Sheila has bad asthma, and Freddy grabs a hold of her in the dream, and do you want a kiss, sort of a deal. And he grabs hold of her, lips to lips, and pretty much sucks her insides out, and just the body kind of squeezes in itself, and he drops it back down on the desk in the room. Bearing in mind, this dream here Alice and Sheila are the only two people in the class. All the other students are there during the dream. Everything that Freddy's doing, all these other kids are sitting as if they're listening to the teacher at the front of the room. And yes, it's unreal. It's crazy, this sequence in the movie. And in the real world, of course, Sheila is having a mad, crazy asthma attack, and eventually Alice wakes up. The whole classroom becomes aware of what's going on to Sheila, but it's too late for her. And she had made this little device that was like a sonic sound machine, if memory serves properly. Like they set this up for something that was going to play big into the end of the movie, and it kind of does. But it's not so much that it left a permanent memory in my head, because I literally only remembered about it now as we're talking about the movie. But anyway, she dies, and as Alice is trying to help her, she gets knocked over by something that's completely invisible. Nobody else sees it. She doesn't see it. She gets knocked down out of the way, and she finds this little device that Sheila had created. I'm pretty sure I probably made a note of it somewhere at the end of this. I kind of need to have a better night's sleep before I start making notes. This just does not make much sense whatsoever here, so please forgive me. But hopefully this podcast is going to give you that little nudge to go and check it out yourself. Sheila's gone. Freddy makes it look like the asthma attack. Rick starts to believe Alice, but the following day he falls asleep in the bathroom at the school, where an invisible Freddy attacks him, takes him into a dream. The bathroom cubicle kind of turns into a lift, and he goes down all these different floors. He ends up in a martial arts dojo. Freddy is completely invisible. You don't see him, and they have like a karate match between themselves. And Freddy's like, "Oh, come on, what sort of martial arts person are you? Like a master shouldn't need to use his eyes." And for a moment or two, Rick gets the upper hand on Freddy, and he's punching and kicking and hitting Freddy, and he manages to knock the glove off Freddy's hand, and it appears on the floor. And he's like, "How are you gonna defeat me now without your weapon?" And the glove levitates, stabs him in the stomach, killing him. With each death, Alice starts to realise that she's changing, and she starts to gain the abilities and the personalities of her dead friends. So obviously, when she got the powers from Kristen in her first dream, she took on some of her personality as well. And with every death that Freddy's getting, she is also taking on the personalities and the abilities of these people. So she's from Rick, she's going to get the ability to fight in a martial arts style. She makes plans with Debbie and Dan to fight and kill Freddy together, but when her father keeps her in, she falls asleep, and through Alice, Freddy stalks Debbie. He's kind of using Alice's power to his own advantage, and he's getting into a dream that Alice is having, but he's kind of using that as a connection to get to Debbie. And it's fairly gruesome the way he takes her out. She's into like bodybuilding, and she's on the garage outside her house, and she's on the weights bench, and she's doing, she's got the barbell, she's up and down with it, and Freddy appears, and he starts pressing the bar down on top of her, and she's trying to fight to push it back up again, and Freddy actually breaks both her arms at her elbows, and as she gets up to run from him, her two arms fall off, and these two insect-like arms start to come out of her, and she eventually turns into about 50 to 60% of her body at the end of this nightmare is an actual cockroach. And she's stuck in this room that's like a little box, and there's all this glue in the floor. Obviously it's a giant roach motel, and through the hole behind her you can see the outside world and everything's moving about, and this huge eye of Freddy Krueger comes up, and he's like, at this point in the movie series, he's blasting the one-liners out steady, and he's kind of like, you check in but you never check out, and he crushes the box and you see all this goo coming out of it. So that's horror killed. Using Debbie's temper, Alice tries to ram Freddy the whole time she's in this nightmare. Alice and Dan are trying to get to Debbie's house to save her, but unknown to the two of them, they're actually inside a nightmare as well, and Freddy is looping them in a time loop to keep them from getting to her house. So they'll start off, she's running to Dan, they get into his van to get to Debbie's house. When they get there and she runs to the house and goes around the corner to go to the garage, she resets to the part where she was running across to the van to leave to go to her house. So that happens 2 or 3 times. They're stuck in this cycle, this time loop, and when they realise what's happening and it's too late, and they're driving up the road and they see Freddy standing in the middle of the street, and Debbie's dead now. Alice has her thick temper. She's angry and she's like, I'm going to drive over him, and she rams the van into him, but it's like she collides with an invisible tree, and turns out in reality it is a tree, injuring Dan. And as Dan is rushed into hospital, Alice returns home and readies herself to join him and face Freddy. In a dream, Alice rescues Dan from the operating table, and the two find themselves in an old church. In reality, Dan has been put to sleep on an operating table to get this injury sorted out, and Dan gets injured in the dream, which prompts his surgeons to wake him up in reality. So he disappears, awakes in the real world. Alice is now left on her own to face Freddy, and Freddy has the upper hand due to his experience of everything that's happened. He's been defeated at this point. This is the 4th film, so he's been defeated 3 times up to this point, a different way each time. So he's getting a bit more experienced on how to try to get out of things. He's got the upper hand with the experience, but she uses all the abilities that she has taken on from her friend's dream powers against him. And but of course Freddy again gets the upper hand, and when he's about to win, Alice remembers the nursery rhyme called The Dream Master. That's what the title of this movie came from. There's a whole idea of this rhyme. We've got Freddy's rhyme, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, and there's another rhyme that if you can remember it in the dream, if you recite it, you can take control of the dream. She recites it and she forces Freddy to face his own reflection, which causes the souls within him to revolt. There's that little machine that I mentioned earlier on that Sheila had created. She uses that during the fight. It's like a sonic sort of a thing, uses sound waves, and she pulls like a power cable out of a wall and beefs that up and kind of pushes Freddy back with it. But it's not a big enough plot point to even remember. And of course, I'm talking about a movie here in a review, and this is the 2nd time I've brought it up, but it's also the 2nd time that I've surprised myself that I've actually remembered about it. But that doesn't even play on it at the end of it. Like Freddy at one point pulls the jumper back, you see all these little faces on his chest and stomach of the souls that he has taken, and the rhyme says, Freddy, you see your own reflection, it'll kill you, sort of a deal. And all these souls that are inside him, they, for once, get the upper hand on Freddy, and they start to pull themselves out of his body. And it's fairly graphic in the way that it's done. These arms, these little small arms, start to come out a different part of Freddy's body, and they grab hold of things behind him and pull him tight to the wall, and they eventually start ripping his body to shreds. And this little hand was open that rips his jaw off his head, and as the head falls back, all the energy of these souls start to get out. You see all the happy smiley faces of all these children's souls that have escaped the hell that Freddy had them in, and they fly out the window, and Freddy falls to the floor dead. They're all gone. Freddy's nothing more but a hollow, lifeless husk on the floor at the end of this sequence. And then we cut to months later. Dan has recovered, and him and Alice, they're on a date, and they're at a wishing well. Dan tosses a coin into the fountain, and for a moment Alice sees Freddy's reflection in the water, but it's been a horror movie. She ignores it. After everything that she's been through, she sees the reflection of Freddy Krueger in the water. What does she do? Let's just continue on with life. Dan asks her what she wished for, and last line of the movie, she doesn't tell him. She's like, if I tell you, that's never going to come true. And they walk off into the sunset, and they live happily ever after. Probably not, because we do indeed get a Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and I can't recall if these two come back for that one. But if it's anything like a connection between Dream Warriors and Dream Master, they'll pop up at the first of the movie and get killed off because Freddy didn't get them in this one. So, great movie. The further these went on, I wouldn't say they got better. The effects got a hell of a lot better. The cheesiness started to slip in there around about Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and they started to really cash in on the celebrity status of Freddy Krueger, and by the time they got to the Dream Master, they were really pushing the humour with Freddy, the cheesy one-liners he was getting. That's what he was known for by the time he got to the end of these movies. And in all fairness, this movie, for me, I don't think it was just as good as the Dream Warriors. I've got a soft spot for Dream Warriors. I think that's a great movie. The Dream Master, on the other hand, the effects are a lot better. There's a lot more going on in it. There's not so much waiting about for Freddy to turn up to torment someone. The action is fairly steady throughout this movie, but there's just something about for me, a horror movie is almost scarier if you don't see what's happening. The more movies got more graphic they got, the less scary they got for me. If a horror movie built something up and took you on a path where you know exactly what's happening, but they don't actually properly show it to you. I think that's the reason why Jaws was such a scary movie, because you very rarely seen the shark. It was more the thought of what was happening or what it would look like. And the more you get to see what's happening, the less scary it is. If you let the storytelling take you to the point and let your own imagination, the imagination of the viewer, build what's happening in their own heads instead of seeing it on the screen. That to me would be a heck of a lot more scary, because what the viewer will make up in their own heads is probably a hell of a lot scarier than anything you could ever put on screen. But in saying that, these days, with effects being what they are, you can put just about anything on screen. But again, as I say, the more you see, the less scary it is. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Gosh, we're going for the better part of a half hour here. I didn't think it was that, but there's a heck of a lot of stuff crammed in to this movie, and for a film it's only 93 minutes long, what you're getting in those 93 minutes is it's overload for the eyes at times. Great movie, but hard to say where it's at in my favourite movies in this franchise. We might do that once we get to the end of them. I don't know, or we'll see what happens. We're just making it up as we go on. Sorry about that. I've got a blocked nose right now. We're just kind of making it up as we go, warts and all. It's what I'm best at, is just having a good time with these movies and sharing that love with you guys. So hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a little written review. Share the podcast on, tell all your friends about this big agent in Ireland that likes pop culture. Check out the website coinsagemedia.com for everything else that I'm doing. Guys, stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.